Having said this, Villefort quitted the room with his wife, leaving his father at liberty to do as he pleased. The same day the will was made, the witnesses were brought, it was approved by the old man, sealed in the presence of all and given in charge to M. Deschamps, the family notary. Chapter 60. The Telegraph. M. and Madame de Villefort found on their return that the Count of Monte Cristo, who had come to visit them in their absence, had been ushered into the drawing-room, and was still awaiting them there. Madame de Villefort, who had not yet sufficiently recovered from her late emotion to allow of her entertaining visitors so immediately, retired to her bedroom, while the procureur, who could better depend upon himself, proceeded at once to the salon. Although M. de Villefort flattered himself that, to all outward view, he had completely masked the feelings which were passing in his mind, he did not know that the cloud was still lowering on his brow, so much so that the Count, whose smile was radiant, immediately noticed his somber and thoughtful air. "Ma foi," said Monte Cristo, after the first compliments were over, "what is the matter with you, M. de Villefort? Have I arrived at the moment when you are drawing up an indictment for a capital crime?" Villefort tried to smile. "No, Count," he replied, "I am the only victim in this case. It is I who lose my cause, and it is ill luck, obstinacy, and folly which have caused it to be decided against me." "To what do you refer?" said Monte Cristo with well-feigned interest. "Have you really met with some great misfortune?" "Oh, no, monsieur," said Villefort with a bitter smile, "it is only a loss of money which I have sustained, nothing worth mentioning, I assure you." "True," said Monte Cristo, "the loss of a sum of money becomes almost immaterial with a fortune such as you possess, and to one of your philosophic spirit. It is not so much the loss of the money that vexes me," said Villefort, "though, after all, 900,000 francs are worth regretting, but I am the more annoyed with this fate, chance, or whatever you please to call the power which has destroyed my hopes and my fortune, and may blast the prospects of my child also, as it is all occasioned by an old man relapsed into second childhood." What do you say? Said the Count, 900,000 francs? It is indeed a sum which might be regretted even by a philosopher. And who is the cause of all this annoyance? My father, as I told you. M. Noirtier. But I thought you told me he had become entirely paralyzed, and that all his faculties were completely destroyed. Yes, his bodily faculties, for he can neither move nor speak, nevertheless he thinks, acts, and wills in the manner I have described. I left him about 5 minutes ago, and he is now occupied in dictating his will to 2 notaries. But to do this he must have spoken? He has done better than that, he has made himself understood. How was such a thing possible? By the help of his eyes, which are still full of life, and, as you perceive, possess the power of inflicting mortal injury. My dear, said Madame de Villefort, who had just entered the room, perhaps you exaggerate the evil. Good morning, madam, said the Count, bowing. Madame de Villefort acknowledged the salutation with one of her most gracious smiles. What is this that M. de Villefort has been telling me? Demanded Monte Cristo, and what incomprehensible misfortune. Incomprehensible is not the word, interrupted the procureur, shrugging his shoulders. It is an old man's caprice. And is there no means of making him revoke his decision? Yes, said Madame de Villefort, and it is still entirely in the power of my husband to cause the will, which is now in prejudice of Valentine, to be altered in her favor. The Count, who perceived that M. and Madame de Villefort were beginning to speak in parables, appeared to pay no attention to the conversation, and feigned to be busily engaged in watching Edward, who was mischievously pouring some ink into the bird's water glass. My dear, said Villefort, in answer to his wife, you know I have never been accustomed to play the patriarch in my family, nor have I ever considered that the fate of a universe was to be decided by my nod. Nevertheless, it is necessary that my will should be respected in my family, and that the folly of an old man and the caprice of a child should not be allowed to overturn a project which I have entertained for so many years. The Baron d'Épinay was my friend, as you know, and an alliance with his son is the most suitable thing that could possibly be arranged. Do you think, said Madame de Villefort, that Valentine is in league with him? She has always been opposed to this marriage, and I should not be at all surprised if what we have just seen and heard is nothing but the execution of a plan concerted between them. Madam, said Villefort, believe me, a fortune of 900,000 francs is not so easily renounced. She could, nevertheless, make up her mind to renounce the world, sir, since it is only about a year ago that she herself proposed entering a convent. Never mind, replied Villefort, I say that this marriage shall be consummated. Notwithstanding your father's wishes to the contrary? Said Madame de Villefort, selecting a new point of attack. That is a serious thing. Monte Cristo, who pretended not to be listening, heard however, every word that was said. Madam, replied Villefort, I can truly say that I have always entertained a high respect for my father, because, to the natural feeling of relationship was added the consciousness of his moral superiority. The name of father is sacred in two senses: he should be reverenced as the author of our being and as a master whom we ought to obey. But, under the present circumstances, I am justified in doubting the wisdom of an old man who, because he hated the father, vents his anger on the son. It would be ridiculous in me to regulate my conduct by such caprices. I shall still continue to preserve the same respect toward M. Noirtier. I will suffer, without complaint, the pecuniary deprivation to which he has subjected me, but I shall remain firm in my determination, and the world shall see which party has reason on his side. Consequently I shall marry my daughter to the Baron Franz d'Épinay, because I consider it would be a proper and eligible match for her to make, and, in short, because I choose to bestow my daughter's hand on whomever I please. What? Said the Count, the approbation of whose Villefort had frequently solicited during this speech. What? Do you say that M. Noirtier disinherits Mademoiselle de Villefort because she is going to marry M. le Baron Franz d'Épinay? Yes, sir, that is the reason, said Villefort, shrugging his shoulders. The apparent reason, at least, said Madame de Villefort. The real reason, madam, I can assure you, I know my father. But I want to know in what way M. D'Epinay can have displeased your father more than any other person? I believe I know M. Franz d'Epinay, said the Count. Is he not the son of General de Canel, who was created Baron d'Epinay by Charles X? The same, said Villefort. Well, but he is a charming young man, according to my ideas. He is, which makes me believe that it is only an excuse of M. Noirtier to prevent his granddaughter marrying. Old men are always so selfish in their affection, said Madame de Villefort. But, said Monte Cristo, do you not know any cause for this hatred? Ah, ma foi, who is to know? Perhaps it is some political difference? My father and the Baron d'Epinay lived in the stormy times of which I only saw the ending, said Villefort.